Hey there, how you doing? I hope fantastic. It's been a little while since I've been on the Streaking podcast, renamed to My Streaks, but I'm thinking about going back to Streaking just because I like the name and I think it's fantastic. Jamie and I have not been on for a little while because of all the different changes that have been happening in life. And that's what I want to talk with you a little bit about today is change and what change does in regard to, or what streaks do in regards to change, and how it is that they can help you through, ground you, put you on a solid foundation to continue moving forward even when there's a lot of uncertainty. So what do you say? Let's get streaking. What is streaking and why should you do it?
Streaking is how you set up personal winning streaks. Look at who you want to be and what you need to do to become that person. This is streaking.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jamie.
And we are streakers. Through 30 years of marriage and 7 children, we have learned the power of consecutive consistency or streaking.
To start streaking is simple. You just follow these 3 laws. Make it laughably simple, keep a record, and join the streaking community.
Streaking is your hidden superpower. With it, you will consistently progress and grow in whatever area of life you want.
In this podcast, Jeff and I will share all the fun, exciting, serious, solemn, wonderful parts of family, spiritual, professional, and personal life, and how streaking powers it all.
So join us in the conversation, join the movement, and start streaking today. Change is something that many have said is a constant in life. I mean, you know it, I know it, everything is going to change. We have every 4 years a change in the presidency, which is upon us. We have changes in government that at the local level, at the state level, and every other level. We have changes in the economy. Economy goes up, it goes down. We have changes that are in our lives, be it personal changes, say from having a child to seeing, unfortunately, a child die. All of these changes are significant and quite constant. Some of the other changes, for example, changes in your job. And that could be with a new company or the company that you're in is changing all about. In the last little while, Jamie and I, that's another change, is in moves. I mean, if you're moving from state to state, in the last little while, about the last 2 years, Jamie and I have had almost all of these changes happen in our lives to one degree or another. We've had close friends of ours die. We've had changes in employment in the sense of people that are our leaders moving on to something else, or the organization changing overall to compensate for changing market conditions. All of these things have happened to Jamie and I in the last 2 years. And as she and I have gone through these changes, we had children get married in the last 2 years. We had children go on missions. We had, so in other words, they left to college. Others of our nieces and nephews have graduated. I mean, you name it. Any one of these things can be a monumental life event in and of itself. And through all of it, the question is, in the moments of disappointment or distress, or in the moments of elation and joy, how do you stay true to who you are and who you want to be? It's been interesting this last little while because as I have been on this streaking journey, for the last 8 years, I have maintained many, many different streaks. So for example, as we look at some of the streaks in my spiritual life, do at least one activity for my calling daily. Do at least one family history activity daily. Do at least one ministering activity daily. Do at least one missionary activity daily. Read at least one verse of scripture every day. Write at least one sentence of my be statement every day. Pray with all energy of heart for charity at least one time every day. Read at least one general conference talk from an apostle or prophet weekly. Visit the temple at least one time every week. So those are all my spiritual streaks. Each one of those came about because of a either feeling or impression, prompting, or from something I had heard as far as what brings success in spiritual life. Many of you who are on the Streaking app have a spiritual streak of reading at least one verse of scripture or one verse of spiritual text every single day. And that one, along with the others for me, helped to ground me in my spiritual life. Now, in spirituality, There is a promise of joy now and a promise of joy when beyond this life. Having a little bit of faith in that promise is necessary, and that faith is developed through what I believe I do in these weekly and daily activities. Now, what are the length of some of these streaks? Well, most of them are over 2,000 days. Pray with all energy of heart for charity at least one time daily is at 1,958 days. And each one has brought a significant view and understanding in my life. It has really helped to ground me. And as the changes have happened, relying on and doing these streaks every single day has allowed me to maintain perspective. There's been a couple of recent events where I was looked over for a promotion because the results that I needed to get weren't there. And that's simply it. And when you're in the life of sales, when you don't get results, no matter what you do as far as dedication-wise, as far as all of the inputs, when you don't get results, often you'll be overlooked. You'll be, passed over. And that was hard. I'll tell you that right now. It is the first year in all of my sales career where I did not have or was not in at least the top 3 of results. It was difficult. And there's a lot, of course, there's a lot of variables into why results aren't achieved. But when it comes down to it, no matter what, in sales, it's the results. Now, what's interesting about that and what's difficult is that as I look at anything that I've studied, any professional, any person that's performing at the top of their game, they will each tell you that it is the inputs that you have that allow you to get the result. That it's the input on which you should focus, which is exactly what I've been doing. So then, the conversation may go to, all right, well, you probably don't have the right inputs, because if you had the right inputs, then you would get the results. And I think that I've had the right inputs. For example, let me just share with you some of the inputs that I have in regards to my sales leadership. I lead a sales team. One is to complete at least one activity for my sales professional daily. So that means be looking at what it is they're doing to perform and offering or adding some value to what it is they're doing on a daily basis. So I have been focused on that, and every single day for 1,026 days, I have done at least one activity for the sales professionals on my team every day. And that includes weekends, every single day. Now, some of you may be saying, Jeff, you're going a little bit overboard there as far as including weekends. But I've noticed that on a weekend, and remember, the first law of streaking is to keep it laughably simple. And the reason you keep it laughably simple is so that you can win, and not only win, but so that you can overcome the rejection response in your brain that says, I don't want to do any of these things. So when I, on the weekend, came across, or this streak, I would do something like, for example, look up the client partner, send them a text, say a prayer for them, think about them and their situation and what I might do on Monday. Any of those things were a client or a sales professional activity. And I did that for all of them. And I know all of my sales professionals. I know much about their personal lives as well as their professional lives. And each one of them are amazing individuals. It wasn't as if they woke up at the beginning of our fiscal year and said, I don't think I want to sell anything this year. You know what? I want to lose a couple of $100,000 or a couple of $1 million worth of business. That's what I want to do. None of them woke up that way. And each one of them dedicated significant time, energy, and effort to accomplishing what they need to do in their sales numbers. So it wasn't that they weren't performing, and I was putting this input in. The second one that I had that was more recent was to evaluate, or to what I call the game tape app. It's not an app, but there's applications, there's services. That's what I was looking for. Services that we use in order to record and then evaluate how sales professionals are doing in each of their meetings. Once we got that particular piece of technology, I started a streak to open that particular service every day, and I did. In it, I reviewed 112 to 115 hours of game tape, which is meetings that the sales professionals that I lead were in with their clients. And as I watched this, it was amazing to see how they would apply their sales skills. And I would have the opportunity to give feedback and to share where the meeting might be more effective, what worked and what would work even better. It was great. I mean, there was real opportunity there for quite some time. Complete at least one-to-one every week. I've done that since the beginning of my leadership tenure, which is, and let me just break this down. Give me just a second here. Let's see here. Almost 3 years. You know what I mean? 3 years. It's amazing. I look at the one-to-ones that I've had and how I've been enriched and how I believe and one of the things I've tried to do, I don't know if they've been enriched, but one of the things that I've focused on significantly is to get to each of the sales professionals some type of value. Now, I haven't been the best at it all the time, but I've put a lot of focus around getting that value and what I need to do with that value, or what I need to do to give them value. Sorry. So I've done that. Another thing that I've done is complete at least one touch for a new logo prospect every workday, working to connect with and strive diligently to continue to build our sales. And this year, with those inputs, as well as others, there's a couple of others that I could throw in here as well. In my professional life, 10 emails or less in the inbox at the end of every day. That's 3,095 days and counting, where I've been responsive to anyone who has reached out to me. I also look at it as request to connect with at least one new person every day, 1,010 days. Again, striving diligently to build the professional network. Those two things have been also those obviously a lot longer than what the other ones that I just read. So the question is, are those the wrong inputs? Because the outcomes or the results were not there. We did not get the sales this time round. And believe me, it's frustrating. And so the question can be, are those the wrong inputs? Or is it that I need to continue consistently doing those things? And in that consistency will achieve in the long run. Honestly, I've questioned whether or not doing the streak is the right thing. Maybe I should have just gone not as consistent. But then I read this quote from Ozan Varol, who is a rocket scientist and was involved with or studied the getting the Mars rover onto Mars. And believe me, there was a lot of trial and error. There was a lot of ingenuity and engineering that went into that. There were any number of complications and difficulties. If you want to read about it, you should read Think Like a Rocket Scientist by Ozan Varol. When I read that, I came across this particular quote. And it has a lot to do, and in the chapter this is in, he's talking a lot about what the people, what is the word I'm looking for? What the scientists needed to do in order to achieve success. I want to read to you just a little bit of this particular, this is an excerpt from the book, Think Like a Rocket Scientist. Inputs over outputs. That's the title of the chapter, and now I'm going to quote from the book. Think back on the failures you've had in your life. If you're like most people, you'll picture the bad outcomes. The business that never took off, the penalty kick you missed, or the job interview you bombed. Poker players, as Annie Duke explains in Thinking in Bets, refer to this tendency to equate the quality of a decision with the quality of its outcome as resulting But as Duke argues, the quality of an input isn't the same as the quality of the output. Focusing on outputs leads us astray because good decisions can lead to bad outcomes. In conditions of uncertainty, outcomes aren't completely within your control. An unforeseeable dust storm can cripple a perfectly designed Martian spacecraft. A bad wind can misdirect a perfectly shot soccer ball. A hostile judge or jury can derail a great case. If we engage in resulting, we reward bad decisions that led to good outcomes. Conversely, we change good decisions merely because they produced a bad outcome. We start shaking things up, reorganizing departments, or firing or demoting people. As one study shows, National Football League, NFL coaches change their lineup after a 1-point loss, but don't change it after a 1-point win. Even though these minor score differences are often poor indicators of player performance. Most of us act like American football coaches, treating success and failure as binary outcomes. But we don't live in a binary world. The line between success and failure is often razor thin. Quote, failure hovers uncomfortably close to greatness, wrote James Watson, the co-discoverer of DNA's double helix structure. The same decision that produced a failure in one scenario can lead to triumph in others. The goal then is to focus on the variables you can control, the inputs instead of the outputs. You should ask, what went wrong with this failure? And if the inputs need fixing, you should fix them. But this question isn't enough. You must also ask, what went right with this failure? You should retain the good quality decisions even if they produced a failure. Inputs aren't sexy. The word input might be better reserved for a boring database software, but an input-focused mind is the mark of anyone who has achieved anything extraordinary. All right, I'm going to pause right here in the reading of this little excerpt here and just re-emphasize this particular paragraph. Inputs aren't sexy. They're mundane. They're difficult. This is me now obviously editorializing on what he wrote. The word input might be better reserved for a boring database software. We're just going to put things in, keep it going. But an input-focused mind, now listen to this, the input-focused mind is the mark of anyone who has achieved anything extraordinary. It is the mark of anyone who has achieved anything extraordinary. This is critical to success. So, the promotion that I was overlooked was something that it was hard. It was hard to handle because I felt that the inputs were right. But as Ozan Vero says here, I may want to look at my inputs. Maybe the inputs that I have right there on a consistent basis are the wrong ones and are not delivering the outcome. However, maybe they are the right ones. And there were extenuating circumstances that were outside of my control, like what was mentioned up above. These extenuating circumstances where, you know what? Focus on outputs leads us astray because good decisions can lead to bad outcomes in conditions of uncertainty, which we are in. The economy which we have is uncertain. Outcomes aren't completely within your control. They're not. In fact, as I look back over the year, there were millions of dollars that were cut in organizations that were working diligently to themselves survive, to make it, to be able to have their people stay employed. Well, all of that weighed very heavy on our numbers. And we felt it this year. It was difficult. I want to continue now with the article because after reading this, anyone who has achieved anything extraordinary is an input-focused mind. It says, continuing to quote, the amateur focuses on getting hits and expects short-term results. The professional plays the long game and prioritizes inputs, perfecting them for a long time with no immediate payoff. Okay, interrupt in the reading of this one more time. Why am I interrupting it? he is talking about here. He went into long analysis, an analysis. I don't know if it's long or not, but analysis of professional tennis players. And he's referencing back to a point in the book where he was talking about the difference between the greats and those who are not great. And he says it's the professional. The amateur looks for just the short-term gain in the tennis match, whereas the professional plays the long game and prioritizes inputs, perfecting them for a long time with no immediate payoff. So as I look at the streaks that I have in the particular arena of my profession, which is sales leadership, I have to look at it and say, are they the right inputs? And I'm putting in those inputs, playing the long game, prioritizing those, perfecting them over a long time with no immediate payoff. One of my other streaks is to read at least one paragraph in a nonfiction book one paragraph in a nonfiction book, at least one every day. And that is also part of the inputs. I'm reading from business professionals and people that were successful in any number of disciplines. That's an input. Is it the right one? I think that it is. I've been helped quite significantly. So do I need to focus on the long game and I have no immediate payoff? This is why, and now we get into back to the article, this is why tennis player Maria Sharapova describes focus on outcomes as the worst mistake that beginning tennis players make. Quote, watch the ball as long as you can, says Sharapova, and zero in on the inputs. By taking the pressure off the outcome, you get better at your craft. Success becomes a consequence, not the goal. Success becomes the consequence, not the goal. When success is the goal, like Sharapova says, you make all kinds of bad decisions in order to get to that maybe short-term success. You see, because a streak and winning streaks are developed over time. Short-term wins, or in other words, the big win once, is and can be something that is manufactured quickly. However, and this is one of the things that I believe, as you set a streak and as you continue to streak, you are building an internal strength that cannot be built any other way than through doing the same thing over and over and over again to build up your strength. Reading a paragraph in a nonfiction book, doing at least one activity for a sales professional every day. Those are built over time. And as I put those inputs in, what I hope to do is to develop into a sales leader that motivates, inspires, adds value to the sales professionals so that they can do what? Close opportunities, get the accounts. This reorientation, back to the article, toward inputs has another upside. If you find yourself resenting the inputs, you might be chasing the wrong output. There's a question that frequently shows up in self-help books. What would you do if you knew that you could not fail? This isn't the right question to ask. Instead, do as Elizabeth Gilbert does and flip the question on its head. This is a quote from Elizabeth Gilbert, what would you do even if you knew that you might very well fail? What do you love doing so much that the words failure and success essentially become irrelevant? When we switch to an input-focused mind, we condition ourselves to derive intrinsic value out of the activity. The input becomes its own reward. With an input-focused mind, you're free to change your destination. Goals can help you focus, but that focus can also turn into tunnel vision if you refuse to budge or pivot from your initial path. Focusing on inputs has another upside. You avoid the wild swings of misery and euphoria that come with chasing outcomes. Instead, you become curious, fascinated about tweaking and perfecting the inputs. Which is exactly what I'm looking at in regards to Let's see here. In regards to, sorry, I just got a text. I got a little bit distracted from what it was. Just something we're working through, Jamie and I, again, with all these changes. Focusing on another insight to inputs. Okay, I'm back with you. So you avoid the wild swings of misery. So here's another thing that's interesting. When I was told I wouldn't be getting this promotion, it took me 12 hours, and I timed it. It took me 12 hours to really get past the feelings that I had and all the different feelings that could come from it. And when I say to get past, I mean the major, that pang that's right there that every time you think about it, it's just either upsetting or difficult or, sad, or I could have done this better, or any number of things that I thought about myself or about those who gave me the decision. Now, I still have some of those things come up. However, having the streaks that I have has helped me to be able to focus on and continue to press forward with the inputs. Basically, I have been fascinated with, and you can hear from this conversation that we're having right now, I have been fascinated with the inputs. Are they the right ones? How can I tweak them? What is it that I can do? Not necessarily, no matter what, outcomes are going to give you some type of feedback. If the Martian lander didn't land, that's going to be feedback. If the job promotion didn't come, that's going to be feedback. Does that mean everything I was doing was wrong? Does that mean everything I was doing was not working? And the answer is absolutely no. Just like Ozan says here, we need to also look at the things that went right. And there's a lot of things that went right. I helped a new sales professional get up and going, and she's really starting to get into and land accounts. There's others that have increased, that have grown. They may not have reached their goal, but they've grown in their accounts year over year. All of these things are good things and have come as a result of hopefully the value that I've been adding to them, to their own sales prowess and how they are as sales professionals. So as we go through, this overlook, and I started the whole podcast today with change and how everything changes. And that's everything. Our whole sales organization is changing. And it's an important change. It's one that we need to continue to get better, to progress. And there's going to be different decisions that are made that are outside of my control. But what I can control are my inputs. What I decide to do on a daily basis in order to continue moving forward. Okay, so with all that being said, the thing that I wanted to really get to is this. You're going to have changes in life. And those changes are sometimes going to be difficult to work through and are going to cause you to lose sleep, to reevaluate, to question your own intelligence, your own ability. It's going to cause all of those, one of those things or all those things. And what will see you through are the streaks that you choose and continue to choose to do. The input-focused mind is the streaking mind. It helps you, it allows you to get to where you need to go and do what you need to do. So, hopefully, as I've talked through this, I know it's been helpful for me to talk it through, because as I've gone through this and as I've strived diligently to keep the streaks alive, and believe me, there's days when I haven't wanted to, and nights that I've just been like, you know what? No, I do not want to do these anymore. However, because of the years of success that have come from focusing on the inputs, there's good reason to continue them forward. Now, I don't suppose that this will be the last time that I have a difficult time doing my streaks. And by the way, doing streaks when it's a euphoric moment, when you get the job, when you find the account, when you do whatever it is, that is successful, it's probably equally as hard. It's like, I got it. I don't need to worry about the inputs. When in actuality, it's the same. You need to worry about the inputs all the time. And the inputs come because you decided to set a streak to do them. Make it laughably simple. Keep the record. Download My Streaks. Keep the record. And then create a community. Report on your success. When you do that, you will find that you have confidence and credibility to keep going. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Streaking Podcast. I know it's been a while. Hopefully we'll get back to these a little bit more consistently as the dust settles on the change. Until that point in time comes, or when we talk again, I hope that you have a fantastic day. And if you want to ask any questions, shoot me an email at Jeffery, Jeffery, at mystreaksapp.com. Download the My Streaks app. It's a fantastic way to keep track of all those streaks that will keep you grounded and foundationally sure as you move through the changes of life. You can also get the Streaking book at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or anywhere books are sold. You can download it via Audible. Also, we have it in ebook form. Streaking, the book, will help you really understand the concepts, the functionality of streaking, and how you set up successful streaks in life. I hope that we have an opportunity to meet someday, and we can talk about our streaks and how they've helped us become who we want to be. Until that day comes, or until we talk again, I hope you have a marvelous, fantastic, wonderful day. And as always, keep streaking.